Hello, this is Leta, and this is me and my mommy's podcast, and then my mommy, and there's me, and then just talking about this stuff, and then we tap dancing because this is the tap dancing autism podcast, and there's a bunch of animals, and I'll be trying to in my hair, and there's bunch of sand, and shit. Also, there's also that stuff, and I'm gonna make it a little bit. Oh, that kind of the old, yes, black and light stuff and that's busy. Oh, and those are them muffled. A boots are amazing. Also, there's me. I'm trying not to have a penance in that. Also, this is the podcast about me. I do that and kept dancing and blah, blah, blah. I'm just ADHD and that thing. Also, that's like your normal pop.
Um, Thank you so much for being so understanding with all the issues with the bad links and everything, Carrie. I really appreciate it. I'm going to warn our audience that I messed up. My Calendly link sent the wrong thing. We record on Riverside. For some reason, it sent Zoom, and then it was a mess trying to get Carrie on. So I really appreciate every bit of patience you've granted us today, Carrie.
Oh, you're welcome. I completely understand technical difficulties.
Um, Thanks so much for coming on the program. Do you mind? I absolutely fail miserably when I introduce our guests. Could you introduce yourself to our audience like you're introducing yourself to someone you met at a coffee shop?
Sure. So my name is Kerie Logan, and I am a therapist, a empowerment specialist. I'm a podcaster, blogger, author, and hypnotherapist. And I've been voted the best hypnotherapist for the past 14 consecutive years for Salem, Oregon. So I really love what I do. And because of this podcast, I have a child that has autism, and my kiddo has PDA as well, and that's called Pathological Demand Avoidance. And not many people know about that because it's not in the DSM-5. So we could unpack many subjects about, autism and what it was like for me. And maybe some of your listeners can, relate or be like, oh, that explains that. So that's why I'm here.
I'm sure a lot of them can. Could you discuss just a little bit about what it was like getting that diagnosis? And, not a lot of our listeners know the difficulty, but a lot of our listeners are coming from the neurotypical world and they're getting the diagnosis, hey, your child is different. What was it like for you getting the diagnosis that your son had autism?
Oh, it was a huge relief because I knew something was up. I didn't know what was up, but I knew something was up and something was different. And it was very frustrating because my partner, the other side of his family, hated it. Were so irritated with me, and they would keep saying, "Why can't you just let him be normal? Why can't you just let him be normal?" And I'm like, "No, this is not typical. Something is going on, and I would rather find out now in his early developmental stages, to better support him and understand if there is something going on, what can I do to help this child? Because it's not about me, it's about him."
I'm smiling only because I heard that a lot from people who in our families knew I was autistic. And they're like, well, why can't you just let Leta be normal?
Yeah.
I think Leta still gets that from members of the family, don't you, Leta? That you could just be normal.
And I don't like those family members. What is your point? People say blood is thicker than water. I do not care.
She kind of gets annoyed when the family members are still telling her, you don't need to have autism.
Yeah, like they think it's just gonna go away, and sometimes I think it could be that kiddo's special power, because they have so many wonderful gifts. To me, autism, there's nothing negative about it. It's just learning how to better support one another and how to communicate.
It definitely, the communication thing, it's the hard part for some
Yeah.
people because they don't understand you have to I think in a lot of ways be a better communicator when you're dealing with someone who's neurodivergent than when you're dealing with someone who's neurotypical.
Correct.
You mentioned the PDA diagnosis, and like you said, not a lot of people would know what that is. Do you mind telling our audience a bit about it?
So PDA is pathological demand avoidance. And I kind of have a theory, a hypothesis, and I've mentioned it to a few other therapists, friends of mine, and actually people that are trauma informed. And PDA does develop out of trauma. So what happens is when a child is born, they usually have a secure attachment, hopefully with that parent. Well, when the parent doesn't understand the child is neurotypical, they're going to try to parent the way that they were parented. And what happens with this child is there will be a lack of communication because the child can't really communicate sometimes when they have autism in the very beginning. You know, they can't. So their only form of communication is behaviors and reactions. And some people might take those behaviors and reactions as the child being defiant, but the child isn't being defiant. The child is trying to communicate with you. And so the child's attachment style goes from secure to anxious to disorganized. And disorganized is where you don't trust your caregiver, you don't trust authority figures. You have to get angry to get your needs met because you feel like you're not being heard. And so this PDA creates kids where they do not trust or respect authority figures. They do a lot of masking, and many people do not know what masking is. So they can mask at school. They can mask around a dysfunctional parent, pretending that, especially the one that caused the PDA, the one that, they're afraid of. So let's say you have a narcissistic or toxic parent, that child will be on their very best behavior with that parent, but then when they go home to the safe parent, they'll fall apart. They'll completely fall apart. And the legal systems and a lot of judges and attorneys do not know about that fact about, masking. They sometimes will say things that they don't understand. Like, for example, my kiddo for a while kept saying Obama, Obama, Obama. And he would be like, why am I saying that? And it just came out. Or he would mimic a certain person or certain voices. So what I suggest to a lot of people is research, if you can, exactly, what are the traits and behaviors of PDA if you have a kid that has autism, because it can answer a lot of questions. And even my son's therapist, when he didn't know what it was until a client of his started talking about the traits and behaviors, and he was like, bingo, that's the missing link with your kiddo. This is what he why we couldn't figure out he couldn't do this or, was acting this way. It just made perfect sense.
Circling back a little bit to masking, because that's a topic we talk about a lot. She's
Yeah.
yawning because she's like, I'm not wanting to say what I want to say. When I was younger, it was the suggestion was that I went to therapy to learn to mask. We are starting to get away from that, thank God. Can you discuss a bit about, from a parent's point of view, did your son's masking interfere with how you could interact with him and relate to him when he was masking and not being his true self?
Yes, because when he would mask, he's learned that he was really stuffing down his emotions and hiding how he feels, how he honestly, truly feels. And there have been times where he has actually apologized to me, and my son's now 17. He's apologized and said, you know, I was masking, pretending that everything was okay, and I was miserable inside. And let's be honest, how many people we see these commercials for antidepressants, how many people are pretending that everything is fine and it's not fine. So he's learned now to I want him to be his authentic self, whether I and to express his emotions and not have to hide if he is angry or if he's disappointed or he feels like he's gonna, explode. I want him to be able to self-regulate his emotions and recognize them and find healthy coping skills. So that's been the real important thing is letting him know that I'm still that safe space and you can trust me. Whether, I agree with what you have to say or like what you have to say, I'm still here to support you because I love you unconditionally. Because this is not about me. This is about your well-being.
I know a lot of our listeners, they are, like I said, coming from the neurotypical world. Um, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Sometimes my brain wants to say it some way, and I'm not sure it will be understood that way.
Yeah.
With the masking, did you see it interfere with any of his other relationships?
Oh, hell yeah. Especially in school, because masking his masking behaviors confused a lot of people. It confused a lot of teachers. It confused just a lot of people because they didn't know what it was, or they didn't know. It's kind of like you appear one way, but in reality, there's a whole different script. And so it's kind of like you're acting, pretending that everything is fine and you're not. And then when you fall apart, people, they think, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? But think about it as a soda can. When you mask and you're stuffing down all those feelings, it's like you're shaking the can, shaking the can, shaking the can, but you haven't cracked the lid open yet. And when something happens and makes that kid snap and crack the lid open, then it's like all hell broke loose. I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yeah. I am so excited. I keep telling Leta, I'm excited that this generation gets to live with parents and with teachers and with therapists who are saying less and less, you need a mask, and more, let's be authentic.
Yeah.
I know she's like, why did you put teachers in that statement? You want to say something, don't you?
There's nothing like that. It's never typical Gen Z. It's Gen Z. I wouldn't really good to just 5 seconds into it. And yet they go off the Gen Alpha like, oh, I think it's
Come
like,
down,
no,
just-
no, that's Gen Z. Gen Z, I think at least we have rights.
So Gen Z's got a problem coming up behind them. It's called Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
She's had
and brains. They're doing that.
calm down, just
Yeah, they keep putting me
Call-
on there, like Gen Alpha,
Leta.
yeah, he think you don't know. It's like Gen Z idiots.
some of her worst dance teachers have been older Gen Zers who are like, you need to live your authentic self. And then when she starts unmasking, they're like, but not that authentic self.
Yeah, and that's where I look at it is, well, that's a you problem, not a her problem, because you told her to be her authentic self, and you need to learn to adapt and cope with those behaviors, and you need to know how to, let's say, redirect her or get her, to calm down or something. It's learning healthier communication skills is really what, and learning patience and tolerance, and because that's the other thing not many people know about the window of tolerance, and everyone has a window of tolerance. So when someone has PDA, their window of tolerance is very paper thin. Like for you and me, it's probably like maybe like 2 or 3 inches. Imagine that. Theirs is like half an inch. And there's two things that's going to happen. They will either go into hyper arousal or hypo arousal. So hyper arousal is where they get very reactive. They can get angry, fight, flight, they're very reactive. But the hypoarousal is really more dangerous. That's what my kiddo has. It's where his nervous system perceives a threat and it literally shuts down. He can't talk, he can't move, he can't think straight. It's like his nervous system thinks or anticipates he's going to be attacked by a bear, but there is no bear. And that's formed out of trauma. And so when we learn about which one is your kid's reaction to the window of tolerance, you have to think about it as a bell curve. When they start to react, that's your time to do the redirecting, the calming tools, to, try to support your kid better. But when it gets up to the top of the bell curve, now you got to ride it. You got to write it out and you got to let them have their tantrum or whatever they're going to do. And then when it starts to de-escalate, you have to stay calm. You have to stay patient. And you got to give this kid grace because the kid went literally into their lizard brain, the survival brain, and just fell apart. And that happens to every single human being, not neurotypical at all. This happens to everybody. And so learning about, healthier coping skills is essential for anybody's well-being.
Well, most of these dance teachers, they don't have an education. Their education is just having gone to dance classes themselves.
That's almost like Gen Z right now, and Gen Z.
Well,
Like, seriously, why do I keep running into people online? What's the relevant people? And it's like, no, Gen Z, you idiots.
most of the teachers have done things like asking her to look them in the eye, which when you're autistic, looking someone in the eye is you're shaking your head. And it's like, this is not a requirement. You could just skip this teacher or her voice will get higher pitched. And with girls, that's a problem. And they're like, well, you're just being a baby. And it's like, I could save you, but I am tired of dealing with it. So I'll just let the 13-year-old be a teenager to you right now.
Well,
long as
and
she's
telling
being-
someone that they're being a baby, that's shaming.
Yeah. And that's what they're doing is they're shaming and going, you have to act the way I want you to act. You can't have that high pitched voice. You can't stim. Leta's got a problem with noise. Noise sensory runs with autism.
Yes, it does.
So when it gets really loud in studio spaces, she tends to put on her headphones and they're like, well, she's being disrespectful. And I'm like, oh, she's not in class. Why does she need to be listening to all the parents yelling, trying to talk over the kids?
And actually, you can flip it and say she's being extremely respectful because she knows what's going to happen if she doesn't put on the headphones. So she's actually doing you a favor by putting the headphones on.
Yeah,
That's how I would have responded.
we responded by building our own dance studio for autistic kids. So she's like, I don't know how we got here. Mainly because mom got upset too. And when mom and kiddo get upset at the same time, weird things happen.
Yeah.
Or
Well, and a lot, like if I was in a situation where I was one of those dance teachers, instead of saying, look me in the eyes, I literally would have sat down next to her, took her hand and had a real gentle conversation. Like, what do you need from me? How can I support you? What's going on? Is it too overstimulating for you? What is it? And trying to, have dialogue instead of immediately going into shame or you have to do what I say. And that's the hard thing, I gotta say, and I cannot preach this enough. I wish more high schools and even college would teach people about mental health, autism, neurodiversity, as well as trauma, to educate people about this, because then we know how to better support each other as a whole, instead of, separation and thinking that person's just crazy, and it's wrong. You're just immediately judging and labeling a person before you know what their life history is about.
Well, and I was the bad parent going, oh, well, they all claimed I was a problem parent. And I'm like, no, I'm asking questions because I was like, is she disrupting the class by not looking at you? They're like, no. I'm like, is she doing exactly what you just asked her to do? Yes. Then why does she need to look at you? Well, because she has to look at me. I'm not
Yep.
under.
Someone with Asperger's couldn't do that.
It took me decades of therapy to learn how to look someone in the eye. And that was therapists back in the old days going, we will look each other in the eyes while you're talking to me, or you're not leaving therapy today.
Even regular adults have a hard time looking someone in the eye. We do.
Yeah. And that when they're like, well, no, you have to look us in the eye. Your voice has to be the pitch I want your voice to be. Which is just asking a child to mask and mask
Yep.
everything about them. And then when she would mask, they're like, oh, yay, she's my friend now. And I'm like, no, she's not.
What, I was supposed to be their friends and not plotting? Okay, how do I completely and totally destroy the studio and probably also completely and totally destroy their soul so their soul will die and go to heaven already?
Which is not what you're supposed to be doing as a child, is plotting revenge.
Right. And I think that's another thing that is part of PDA, is they can get really negative, intrusive thoughts. And that's very unfortunate that they have that.
What do you mean by revenge? It's not
What does
just
it mean by intrusive
revenge.
thoughts? Intrusive thoughts could be a thought that pops in your head immediately, and it's like, I want to kill that person. That person should just die. That person's horrible. And you're conflicting. You're going, why am I thinking that thought? It's kind of like it just pops up in your head, and it can cause confusion. Why do I have this intrusive thought? Why do I always have this angry voice in my head?
But my brain just went, it has been one of those days where the ADHD is taking over the brain.
It's okay.
Oh.
And that actually
But-
can be a trauma trigger. Having those intrusive negative thoughts can be correlated to trauma. So she experienced a traumatic experience with the teachers and stuff. That could be why her brain immediately wants to go to, I want to just eliminate them. I can't stand these people. They're not letting me be my authentic self. They're not listening to me. So her brain immediately goes into, wanting to hurt those people, and that's, normal. And I tell people, everybody has intrusive thoughts. What matters is if you act on them or you don't. And it's good not to act on them.
But where did my brain go? I did want to get that. There's a reason I edit these things.
Yeah.
As someone who also works with the adults and not just with the kids, is there anything you could tell, like these young kids that are barely out of college and they keep telling me they're adults, but I'm like, if you're not really old enough to drink, or I at this age get to think you're a kid, right? If they're not, like I said, they're not trained. They haven't gone to college. Even if they did go to college for dance, they don't take any educational courses, though they've been told by everyone they're educators, which I think gives them a little inflated sense of self, because they're like, oh, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, I know how to work with kids. What would your advice be to them on dealing with kids who have autism or any type of neurodiversity and PDA?
I would say really educate yourself about the subject, educate yourself about the window of tolerance, educate yourself about trauma and even attachment styles. You can learn a great deal about that. And then most importantly, learn what they call like emotional intelligence, healthy communication skills, because the way you communicate it is different than how you would communicate with a neurotypical person. And it's just having more patience, more grace, more space in the whole thing, and not trying to rush to let's find a solution now, but really have it come where it's natural. Because as you know, their brain is different and the way they process is different. And sometimes they have to process a little bit slower than we do. And it's understanding that and giving them grace and holding that space for silence, because silence a lot of times allows them to process and think. You're not pushing them. Well, what is it? What is it? What is it? I hope you get where I'm
Oh,
coming from.
I do. I can't tell you the number of times both of us have needed silence. She's showing off her puppy. He decided to come down to the podcasting booth.
Yeah.
They're attached at the hips. I wanted to also ask, because one of the big national dance magazines that all the dance teachers and all the studio owners read just published an article this week about parents being the problem when it comes to dealing with kids. When you're dealing with a neurodivergent kid, should the student, if you're an adult dealing with them, should you maybe ask their parents a little bit more about the child?
I would say yes. And 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 really, this might be hard for some people to hear, but really ask, what is your intentions and motives behind getting your kid in this dance class? Like, what do you want to get out of it? What do you want your child to experience? And tell me about your kid. Really wanting to understand, like, because for me, with my kiddo, I tell people he struggles with personal space. He struggles with oversharing. These are his struggles. When he, gets overstimulated, this is what he's going to do. So then it's kind of preparing them for what might happen when I'm not there. And that's why it's important. So, and I can understand why the magazine says a lot of it is with the parents, because there are some parents out there that want their child to be a celebrity, that want their child to be a star, that want their child to, win all these competitions or whatever. And that child isn't being allowed to be a child.
Oh, I totally understood where the magazine was coming from, but I know with Leta, tried to explain she has severe dyslexia, and I
Right.
had dance teachers that would work with her for a year and a half, trying to teach her how to pirouette the way they wanted her to. Her eyes don't track that way. By the time we were pulling her out of studio, they were like, well, I Googled dyslexia and decided if she just tried harder. And I'm like, sometimes the parents may be better than Google at what this specific diagnosis means.
Right. And you got to accept it is, maybe she can't do it perfect the way that you want it to be, and that's still okay.
They get really annoyed because she can do a pirouette. It's not the way they want it to, but she can make it look like everyone off stage doesn't realize she's not tracking the way they want her to, because she's given herself accommodations to make it work.
So then I say, who cares? She can do it. It's just not.
Because as much as they all say they're neurotypical, I'm like, y'all seem to think these rules have to be followed a certain way. That seems a little neurodivergent to me, people.
Yes, and I'm just going to say it, rather anal retentive.
Yeah, because they're like, no, she has to do it this way. I'm like, when she does it that way, she gets dizzy and has a headache. And they're like, we don't care. And I'm like, okay.
Well, let me
Um,
tell you this. That is why ABA did not work. At work, period. I mean, there was a moment I had to throw them out of my house because they're all about forcing a child to do something they don't want to do. And one time I told them, if you did that to me when I was a kid, I'd be way worse than my son. I would have thrown stuff at you. I would have swore at you. I would have probably hit you because you're trying to force me to do something that I flat out said no. And so, what part of no do you not understand? And it irritates
yeah.
me that ABA would play those games with children, and that can create PDA because you're forcing them against their will to do something that they flat out said, no, I don't want to do this.
She was in ABA for a grand total of 5 weeks before I called up her developmental pediatrician and went, Frank, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to get her out of this, or mommy's trauma response is about to take over.
Yeah.
And you're bailing me out of jail. And when I explained to him, he'd never actually sat down and understood what ABA was doing. And he's like, well, now that it's coming from you, a parent I trust, no, she's out now and all my other patients are out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did the MD not look into what this was all about?
Well, I mean, it's just sad. I mean, the whole thing about that program is just sad, and I don't believe in it. I mean, I know my son did the early intervention program, and that was great, where they had the little laminated images with Velcro, where we're going to move to this next task, and it was great. But they went kind of at the kid's pace, and they told him, "This is what we're going to do." They showed him the structure. And they made it fun. They didn't make it where it was, like you're being punished.
Leta's ABA therapist, in the 5 weeks she was there, she's not picking up the microphone because she knows she'll go off on this. She was tied to a chair in ABA to make her sit at the table, and she was 3 years old.
Wow.
She was quickly out of ABA after I found out because they wouldn't let me back in the ABA because they were like, no, parent, you're not allowed to come back here.
And to me, that's child abuse. That is a form of child abuse. I mean, I would have literally taken my kid down to the police station and reported them for child abuse.
I told both her general practitioner and a developmental ped and her neurology team, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to go to the police station because I'm going to get upset.
You're
And
not
they're not gonna take
allowed
me
to
seriously.
restrain a child unless you are professionally trained. And there's a certain amount of seconds you can. Even a school can only restrain a child for so long. There's a certain time, and then you have to let him go. You cannot do that. So if anyone's listening,
It's not right.
It's not right.
She had a speech therapist that was also forcing her until I got a little mad and made sure the speech therapist lost her license to eat pizza because Leta has a texture issue with pizza. Like, most autistic kids have texture issues with food. Hers happens to be junk food. And I was like, why are we trying to fix the junk food?
Yeah.
And her speech therapist was like, but if we don't force her to eat it until she throws up.
Like they were like my pee. So I pray like maybe because I don't realize I lost children. That we need help first. Like I don't realize this. But yes, it's in America, but you can still be healthy in America. Like I praise her. So yeah. F them.
I mean, kids won't necessarily tease you just because you don't like pizza. They'll find something else to tease you on, probably.
Well, when I was a kid, my parents would, whenever they did the vacation, my dad would drive around and he would make us eat bologna sandwiches. And I hate bologna. And there was one day where I told him, if I eat this sandwich, I'm going to throw up. And of course, they didn't believe me. But when I threw up, that was the last time I was ever given bologna again.
This speech therapist made Leta keep doing it until I figured it out. And then she brought me in to do I'm smarter than you. And I'm like, we can academia this because I have a PhD and you have a doctorate of speech. And we all know how this works in academia. Me bigger than
Yeah.
academia is very, we have our places. And then she was telling me her son was getting his physics degree. And she's like, why is he taking calculus in senior year? And I'm like, it's advanced calculus. That's a senior. Which made me go, I don't really trust you if you don't know where your calculuses go. But, I'm a math and physics major. So we
Now, and
have,
some people with autism are great with numbers. Like my kiddo, when he was, I think, like 5 years old, you tell him the, what is it, the year how old you are, and he would figure out right away, oh, you were born this year. Yeah. And he even like what? I think he was in first grade. I had a parent teacher conference and I was thanking them for teaching him the states and the capitals throughout the US. And they looked at me and they said, oh no, he taught it himself. He literally looked at the map every day and taught himself that. So that's why I'm saying some autistic traits are a superpower. They're great with music. They're great with numbers. There's, with dance, there's things that they can do that other people can't do. It's amazing.
Leta's pretty much self-taught in tap dancing because a lot of her tap teachers would tell her because of her autism, she needed to go sit in the corner so that they could work with the kids who weren't autistic, which now she likes corners because those are her safe spots in rooms now. But they also then, because she was so good, they wanted her on stage. She was like 7 on stage with middle schoolers. She was like 8 and on stage with the high schoolers. But they didn't want her interfering in class, which it's a whole, you're like, I'm not completely sure I understand where you guys are coming from.
Well, it kind of sounds like, oh, let's show everyone what she can do, to, look good. Like, oh, we taught her this, but in reality, yeah, it's kind of wacko.
It is. And there were, but she's like, I like corners. I do understand, like, coming back to the dance mag, I do understand there are a lot of parents out there who do want that star, who do want to push their kids well past what they want. I do think, though, that Dr. Google is not the best place to go look up anything. Google will give you probably some really bad results if you go look up what like autism is. Do you have any advice as a professional therapist on places that these teachers could learn about autism or PDA or other types of neurodivergency?
Well, I would say to start is there's podcasts out there. There really is, and listen to podcasts. There is, I think, the Neurodivergent University. That is great information. I mean, they have really good resources there as well, and try to find whatever tools you can get. Like for my kid, they gave him a tablet. Now they have apps out there all over, but they gave him a tablet that actually helped him communicate with me in the beginning. And maybe take some classes because I took a 12-week course on, play therapy with my son when he was nonverbal in the beginning to know how to respond to him and him learn how to respond with me. So and I read books. I read books. I really didn't use Google to answer the questions. I wanted to get information from someone that had a degree and had a wealth of knowledge in the area. So that's, kind of the path I went. But I do want to cover one thing that we did talk about before when you were interviewing me, and that is the seriousness about masking. Because I did lose custody of my son for 8 months because his dad convinced the court that all of his bad behaviors was my fault. And I could understand why they would logically see that and feel that way, because he would come home and he'd fall apart. And he would tell me about what happened and the abuse that he was experiencing. And it's hard because when you deal with another toxic parent, that parent can say, well, she's feeding him all that stuff. She's trying to make that child hate me and not like me. And not once did I say anything bad about this man. I was just like, no, I'm trying to help this child out. Something is, wrong. And so if anyone is in the legal system and is dealing with this, your kid is autistic and the other parent is trying to take custody or use those behaviors against you, you need to educate the judge, whether you have a parent coordinator, your attorney, even school, because the school didn't know what masking was. It's educating everyone. This is what that behavior is, and talking to the child and saying, why do you feel you need to mask? And be quiet, go silent, and let the kid tell you, this is why I'm masking. Because it traumatized my kid. I mean, it was, my son is still in trauma therapy because of what happened legally with, because I lost custody, and it was a horrible experience. And my son actually feels responsible for it because he realizes that if he didn't mask, that never would have happened.
Making sure I'm on here. I did want to get back to that because I know a lot of our parents that listen, and a lot of the parents at the studio, we have a no masking, no judgment policy at the studio. We're not going to judge you for your kid's autistic traits. And the number of parents who are told if you would just discipline your child, they would lose all these autistic traits.
And if you discipline them the way that your parents disciplined you, you will most likely damage that child. I'm going to just
It
be
is.
flat out honest, because we live in a world now where empathy is important, vulnerability is important, and really getting on that child's level to understand them of what is going on, because the child is masking out of fear that I won't be liked, fear that I won't be accepted, fear that I won't make friends, fear that I'll be punished, fear that I'll be shamed or humiliated. And there's reasons why they're masking. You need to find out what the reason is, and you need to really talk with your kiddo to, hey, even when you're angry, I still love you. I mean, I tell that to my son all the time. When you lose it, I still love you. When you say hateful, mean things to me, I know you still love me and I love you, because you always come around and apologize and say, I'm sorry.
The one that gets me with our studio is the kids will get so excited when they get a step right and go and want to like scream and have a party for it, which they really should, because I mean, dance is hard. And then their parents are like, oh, I'm so sorry they got excited.
You shouldn't be. You should be celebrating with them, because it's an
Yeah.
achievement. It's not an embarrassment.
And they're like, but everywhere else we've been, if my child does, and you can see it because they'll be like clapping, running around in circles and stuff. They're young. Let them have their excitement.
Yes, don't shame them, because then you're grooming them. You're literally grooming them to want to mask, because you're
And
letting
that's
them know unconsciously that they're not good enough.
and that I think hurts so much is these parents are apologizing for their kids being happy that they got something right. And I'm like, you as parents also shouldn't have been getting this from society, that your kid can't be excited that they got something right.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Which then leads me back to sometimes we have dance studios call up and go, how can we do this in our studio? And I'm like, you can't, because you would have to change how you actually work. You would have to be okay with a kid going, oh my gosh, we had a really bad 2 weeks of storms and our kids came back and they're like 5, 6, 7, 8. Neurotypical kids are going to forget in that time. Our kids forgot none of the steps they'd been working on. And our teachers were just thrilled and wanting to scream, but remembering screaming in front of the little kids is bad. But they wanted to scream from joy going, you've been gone 2 weeks and you remembered everything I taught you. And then the parents are like, I am so sorry. My child is excited they remembered. And it's like, be excited they remembered after 2 weeks.
Yeah, be excited, because some people wouldn't. Average person, might not. And that's the thing about kids with autism, is they get really, really fixated. But that fixation can be a gift because they're perfecting it.
Yes. Well, I truly enjoyed having you on today, Carrie. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate you. If anyone wants to know where they can find me, you can just Google my name. It's really easy. It's spelled Kerie, last name Logan.
We're going to have your socials and your website in the description of the
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you.
It's also going to be, we keep a running page on our website of all of our previous guests, and you will have a spot on there too if anyone's looking and going, oh, I don't remember where I can find her. We'll have it on the website and in the description.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you again for dealing with all the technical difficulties today. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Leta, for being a wonderful host as well.
Can you say thank you?
She's smiling.
You said thank you. She is kind of peopled out this week.
It's okay. It's all.
It is Wednesday, and she's already got like 4 more. She's guesting for next month on Autism podcast and some mainstream podcasts. And Monday, she was on camera from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And she's like, I'm peopled out for the week, Moss.
I would too.
Thanks again for your time, Carrie.
You're
and
welcome, Amanda.
we can't wait to talk to you again, possibly.
Okay. Take care and
Bye.
many blessings to you.
You too.
Hello, thank you for watching the podcast. Please subscribe and also look at the adorable people. Just to also subscribe for it and also please the text. And don't forget to share the great friend if you are with any other new podcast with you. And also you can see the adorable people. Just like it.